While you're listening to these words, your conscious mind is desperately trying to keep up, processing a meager 40 bits of information per second. It feels like you're in control, doesn't it? But you're not. Beneath the surface of your awareness, a silent titan is processing 11 million bits of data every single second. That is a ratio of nearly 275,000 to 1. Every decision you think you made, every emotional trigger that ruins your day, and every limiting belief that keeps you paralyzed in anxiety was decided by this hidden giant long before your conscious mind even realized there was a choice to be made. You're essentially a passenger in a vehicle being driven by a stranger. This stranger is your subconscious mind, fueled by the default mode network, a neural circuit that, left unchecked, acts as a prison of rumination and past trauma. This is why you can't simply think your way out of chronic stress or willpower your way into lasting peace. Your conscious intention is a candle flame trying to steer a hurricane. But what if there was a back door? What if there was a specific, scientifically backed window of time, a state of neuroplastic fluidity, where the gates to this 11 million bit processor actually swing wide open? Tonight, we aren't just talking about abstract psychology. We're hijacking the neuroscience of your soul. We're going to deconstruct the exact mechanism of the default mode network and reveal why your brain is currently hardwired to keep you in a loop of suffering. More importantly, we are going to explore the state-dependent learning protocols and the role of sleep spindles that allow you to bypass your critical filter and rewrite the very code of your existence while you drift into deep relaxation. By the end of this journey, you will understand how to transition from a state of survival to a state of infinite stillness. If you've ever felt like you were fighting a war against yourself, it's because you were. And it's a war you are guaranteed to lose unless you learn how to reprogram the machine. The silence is waiting. Let's begin the descent. Right now, as you listen to the sound of my voice, your conscious mind is processing roughly 40 bits of information per second. It is the part of you that chooses which video to click on, which thoughts to entertain, and how to navigate the immediate world around you. But beneath that thin layer of awareness lies a silent titan. While you focus on these words, your subconscious mind is processing a staggering 11 million bits of information every single second. It is the engine of your existence, managing your heartbeat, your cellular repair, and, most importantly, the deeply ingrained emotional blueprints that dictate how you react to stress, love, and life itself. Have you ever wondered why, despite your best conscious intentions to stay calm, anxiety seems to trigger automatically? Or why no matter how many self-help books you read, you find yourself trapped in the same cycles of rumination? The answer isn't a lack of willpower, it's a matter of bandwidth. You're trying to steer a massive ship with a tiny oar. Or in this session of Sleepy Science Night, we're going to bridge the gap between your conscious intention and your subconscious function. We're diving deep into the architecture of the human brain to understand the default mode network, the neurological circuit responsible for that mind wandering that often turns into worry. We will explore the revolutionary science of neuroplasticity, proving that your brain is not a static organ, but a dynamic flowing landscape that can be reshaped while you sleep. Tonight, we aren't just talking about relaxation, we are talking about state-dependent learning. We're going to look at how sleep spindles and memory consolidation during the night provide a unique window of opportunity to bypass your analytical filters and speak directly to the core of your being. By the end of this journey, you will understand how to leverage implicit memory and your felt sense to rewrite the internal narratives that no longer serve you. Prepare to settle in, breathe deeply, and journey home to your natural state of stillness. We're about to unlock the profound mysteries of your hidden self and discover the neuroscience of lasting inner peace. To understand why you feel like an observer in your own life, we have to look at the architectural blueprint of your brain's default state. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a grand, ancient library. Your conscious awareness, that 40-bit per second processor, is like a single librarian with a dim flashlight trying to organize millions of books in total darkness. You think you're managing the collection, but you're only seeing the titles of the 3 books directly in front of you. Meanwhile, in the vast echoing shadows, an automated system is moving entire shelves, burning old manuscripts, and rewriting history without ever asking for your permission. This automated system is governed by the Default Mode Network, or the DMN. In the world of neuroscience, the DMN is the me network. It is the circuit that flickers to life the moment you stop performing a specific task. When you're staring out a window, lying in bed trying to fall asleep, or waiting in line for coffee, your DMN is at maximum power. It is the seat of self-reflection, but it is also the engine of your greatest suffering. The DMN is responsible for what scientists call mental time travel. It pulls you out of the present moment and drags you into the past to relive your embarrassments, or hurls you into a hypothetical future to simulate every possible catastrophe. This isn't a glitch, it's an evolutionary survival mechanism. Your brain isn't designed to make you happy, it's designed to keep you alive. To your survival-oriented subconscious, happiness is a luxury. But the memory of a social rejection or a physical threat is a data point that must be analysed and replayed 1,000 times to ensure it never happens again. This is the prison of rumination mentioned earlier, because the subconscious processes information at a rate of 11 million bits per second. It can construct elaborate, terrifying simulations of your life in the blink of an eye. By the time your conscious mind catches up and tries to say, "Relax, everything is fine," the subconscious has already flooded your system with cortisol and adrenaline. You're trying to use a logical argument to stop a chemical tidal wave. This is why willpower fails. You cannot use a 40-bit tool to fix an 11 million bit problem. The tragedy of the human condition is that our brains are incredibly efficient at hardwiring these negative states. For, through a process called long-term potentiation, the more you worry, the better your brain gets at worrying. The neural pathways associated with anxiety become like 8-lane highways, while the pathways for peace and stillness are like overgrown footpaths through a jungle. Every time you fall into a cycle of self-criticism, you are physically thickening the walls of your own mental cage. You're essentially practicing how to be miserable, and as the old saying in neuroscience goes, neurons that fire together wire together. But why is this so hard to change? Why can't we just decide to be different? The answer lies in the concept of implicit memory. Unlike your explicit memory, which remembers what you had for breakfast or the capital of France, implicit memory is a body memory. It is the non-verbal, emotional coding of every experience you've ever had. It's the reason your stomach knots up when you hear a certain tone of voice, or why you feel a sudden wave of inadequacy when you walk into a boardroom, even if you're the most qualified person there. These implicit memories are stored in the subcortical regions of the brain, far below the reach of the analytical neocortex. They are written in a language of sensations, symbols, and survival instincts. They are the code of your existence. When you try to change your life through sheer willpower or positive affirmations, you're essentially trying to change the software of a computer by shouting at the monitor. The monitor might show you what's happening, but the code is hidden deep in the mainframe, untouchable by the interface you use every day. This creates a profound expectation gap. You expect to be able to control your mind because you feel like the self is a singular entity. But neuroscience suggests we are actually a collection of competing modules. There is the module that wants to be healthy, and the module that wants the dopamine hit of sugar. There is the module that wants to be confident, and the module that is still trying to protect the 7-year-old version of you who was laughed at in class. Most of your internal conflict isn't a lack of character, it's a lack of synchronization between these modules. The hidden giant, the subconscious, is always running the show. It regulates your body temperature, handles the complex coordination of walking, and monitors the environment for threats, all while you're busy thinking about what to watch on Netflix. It is the ultimate behind-the-scenes manager. However, Because it is so fast and so powerful, it is also incredibly stubborn. It values consistency over correctness. If your subconscious has associated safety with staying small and unnoticed, it will sabotage every opportunity you have for growth, because to the subconscious, growth represents the unknown, and the unknown represents death. Consider the physical toll of this disconnect. When the DMN remains hyperactive, it keeps the body in a state of low-grade chronic stress. This isn't just a mental feeling, it's a biological reality. It leads to systemic inflammation, impaired immune function, and a literal pruning of the connections in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that allows you to think clearly and make rational decisions. We become trapped in a feedback loop. Our brain creates stress, the stress damages our brain, and the damaged brain becomes even more prone to stress. We look for exits in all the wrong places. We seek external solutions for internal architectural problems. We think a new job, a new relationship, or a new city will finally bring that elusive sense of peace. But as the saying goes, wherever you go, there you are. You take the 11 million bit processor with you. You take the DMN with you. You take the stranger driving the vehicle with you. Until the internal code is rewritten, the external scenery is irrelevant. The prison isn't the world around you. The prison is the predictive model your brain has built of the world. So how do we reach the code? How do we talk to the giant? This is where the mystery deepens. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fight the giant, trying to wrestle it into submission. They use self-help like a blunt instrument, beating themselves up for not being stronger or more disciplined. But the giant doesn't respond to force. It doesn't understand the language of the conscious mind. It doesn't care about your goals or your vision boards. But there is a vulnerability in the system, a moment when the giant rests and the gates to the mainframe are left unguarded. Now pause for a moment. Think about everything I've just told you. You've been led to believe that you are the captain of your ship, the master of your soul. We've spent this time discussing how your conscious mind is the victim of your subconscious processing. We've established that your willpower is a tiny candle in a hurricane. But here is the pattern interrupt, the truth that flips the entire script. Recent neuroimaging and the famous Libet experiments suggest that the sensation of making a choice is actually a retrospective illusion. Your brain initiates the action before you even have the conscious thought to do it. You aren't the captain trying to steer a ship. You're a passenger who has been convinced they are the captain. Your free will isn't the power to initiate action. It is actually just the power to veto an action that has already begun. You aren't the creator of your thoughts. You're merely the audience for them. And if you aren't the one creating your thoughts, then who or what is? This predictive model isn't just a collection of thoughts, it is a biological fortress. To understand why your efforts at change have felt like running into a brick wall, we have to look at the energetic cost of the self. Your brain, despite representing only 2% of your body weight, consumes 20% of your daily energy. The default mode network is the most expensive real estate in that £3 organ. It is an energy hog, constantly burning fuel to maintain the story of you. When you try to change a habit or silence a negative thought through sheer willpower, you're essentially asking your brain to divert energy away from a high-priority survival program to fuel a low-priority 40-bit per second experiment. Your biology views your self-improvement as an expensive distraction. It would rather keep you comfortably miserable in a familiar routine than risk the metabolic cost of building a new neural pathway. This is the biological root of resistance. It's why, the moment you decide to start a new meditation practice or change your outlook on life, your brain suddenly finds a dozen reasons to procrastinate, get distracted, or fall back into old patterns. It's not that you are weak, it's that your brain is being efficient. It is protecting the established 11 million bit code because that code, however painful, has kept you alive up to this point. In the eyes of your subconscious, survival is the only metric of success. If you're breathing, the program is working. Why would it risk changing the code for something as nebulous as happiness? Now let's go deeper into the silent titan itself. nyam to the subconscious, there is no such thing as linear time. This is a crucial distinction that explains why trauma feels so present, even decades later. Your conscious mind, the librarian, knows that a childhood rejection happened 20 years ago. But to the 11 million bit processor, that rejection is a live data packet. The subconscious stores emotional memories in a timeless now. When a current event triggers an old wound, your brain doesn't just remember the pain. It reactivates the exact same neural signatures and chemical cascades as if the event were happening right this second. This leads to what neuroscientists call affective realism. Your brain uses these past emotional states to predict your current reality. If your subconscious is running a program of unworthiness, it will literally filter your sensory input to find evidence that supports that program. It will ignore the 10 people who smiled at you and focus entirely on the one person who didn't look up. You aren't seeing the world as it is. You're seeing a high-speed simulation constructed from your oldest, most painful data points. You're living in a hall of mirrors, and every mirror is reflecting a version of the past you haven't yet learned how to delete. The physical consequences of this DMN dominance are profound. When the brain is locked in this predictive loop of stress and rumination, it enters a state of neural rigidity. The production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, the miracle grow for your brain, slows down. The hippocampus, the area responsible for memory and emotional regulation, can actually begin to shrink. Meanwhile, the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes hypersensitized. You become locked in, a prisoner of your own neurological architecture. This is where the state-dependent learning protocols become your only viable escape route. To reach the 11 million bit processor, we have to wait for the librarian to go home. We have to wait for the conscious mind to loosen its grip. Every night, as you drift towards sleep, you pass through a magical neurological corridor known as the hypnagogic state. This is the transition between alpha and theta brainwaves. In this window, the critical filter, the part of your brain that analyzes, judges, and rejects new information, begins to dissolve, and the 40 bit per second processor is shutting down for the night, but the 11 million bit processor is just getting started. It is during this time and the subsequent stages of sleep that the brain engages in memory consolidation. Imagine your brain as a busy office. During the day, the 40-bit librarian is just piling papers on the desk, but at night, when the office is closed, the silent titan comes in to file those papers, shred the ones it thinks are useless, and reorganize the entire system. This is where sleep spindles come in. These are rapid bursts of brain activity that occur during non-REM sleep. Recent research suggests that sleep spindles are the mechanism by which the brain transfers information from short-term working memory to long-term architectural memory. They are the right command on the subconscious hard drive. If you're ruminating on stress or anxiety as you fall asleep, you're effectively telling your subconscious, "This is the most important data from today. File this under core truths. Build more pathways for this." You're using the most powerful reprogramming window of the day to reinforce your own prison. You are practicing your suffering in the one place where it becomes permanent. However, if we can hijack this window, if we can use specific state-dependent protocols to feed the subconscious a new set of instructions during this theta wave transition, we can bypass the 40-bit librarian entirely. We can speak directly to the engine room. We can use the felt sense, the non-verbal language of the subconscious, to signal safety, abundance, and stillness. We aren't just thinking new thoughts. We are installing new body memories. We are teaching the nervous system how to feel before the conscious mind has a chance to argue. By leveraging the sleep spindle mechanism, we can initiate what is known as neural pruning. We can start to weaken the 8-lane highways of anxiety and begin to pave the footpaths of peace. This isn't a mindset shift. This is a biological reorganization. This is the science of making peace your default state, rather than something you have to fight for every single day. But here is where everything we've discussed, the DMN, the 11 million bits, the stranger driving the car takes a turn that most people find impossible to accept. We've been talking about you and your brain, as if there is a you inside your head. You're watching a screen and trying to control the machinery. We've established that the stranger is the subconscious, and you are the passenger. But what if I told you the passenger doesn't actually exist? This is the ultimate pattern interrupt of neuroscience. The self is not a pilot. The self is a story the brain tells itself after the fact to explain why it did what it did. Modern neuroimaging shows that the brain's motor centers fire to move your hand half a second before you consciously decide to move it. The decision is made by the 11 million bit machine, and then, a fraction of a second later, the 40 bit per second DMN creates a thought that says, "I decided to move my hand." You're not the captain steering the ship. You aren't even the passenger. You are the narrator who is watching the ship sail and pretending you're the one holding the wheel. Your entire sense of identity, your worries, your goals, your willpower is a delayed broadcast. If the you who is trying to fix your life is just a ghost in the machine, a byproduct of the very system that is causing the suffering, then who is the one that actually has the power to change the code? To find the answer, we have to look past the narrator. We have to look at the silence behind the story. This silence isn't an empty void. It is the only real thing in the room. If the self is just a delayed broadcast, a voice in your head narrating the past, then your true power lies in the entity listening to that voice. Neuroscience calls this meta-awareness. You're not the thoughts, you are the biological space where the thoughts happen. You're the screen, not the movie. But knowing this intellectually is entirely useless, because right now the movie playing in your head is so loud it's shaking the theatre. How do you pull the plug on a projector that powers itself? You stop arguing with the images, you change the electrical current. The subconscious titan doesn't understand logic, but it is incredibly fluent in neurochemistry. The physical bridge between the ghost in the machine and the 11 million bit processor is your vagus nerve. It is the superhighway of your parasympathetic nervous system. It wanders from your brainstem down through your vocal cords, your heart, and your gut. It dictates your fight or flight response fractions of a second before your conscious mind even registers a threat. Most people live with a frayed, overstimulated vagus nerve. They are trapped in sympathetic overdrive. But there is a biological cheat code to hack it. It's called interoceptive signaling. By mechanically changing the rhythm of your diaphragm, you force the vagus nerve to send a massive stand-down order to the amygdala. 6 breaths a minute. Inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale for 6. This exact mathematical ratio triggers a sudden, violent spike in heart rate variability. The Titan senses this shift immediately. It interprets the lengthened exhale as a biological guarantee of safety. The cortisol drip stops. The default mode network begins to power down. The 40-bit narrator is finally gagged. But calming the system is only half the battle. Now that the blast doors to the mainframe are open, what new code do you upload? This brings us to the theta bridge. As your vagal tone shifts and you slip close to sleep, your brain waves decelerate from the frantic beta state into the smooth rolling waves of theta. You enter the hypnagogic window. This is the neuroplastic sweet spot. The critical filter is offline. Your brain is highly suggestible, perfectly primed to trigger long-term potentiation. But here is where 99% of people make a fatal error. They try to upload positive affirmations. They mentally repeat phrases like, "I am wealthy" or "I am stress-free." The Titan rejects them immediately. Why? Because words are the language of the 40-bit narrator. The Titan doesn't speak English. It speaks in somatic markers. It communicates through raw emotion and physical sensation. To rewrite the deep code, you cannot simply tell the subconscious you are safe. You must show it. You have to generate the precise physical sensation of gratitude or relief before the external environment justifies it. You must construct a synthetic body memory. When you combine a clear intention with an elevated emotional state during the theta window, you are literally hacking the brain's timeline. You're hijacking the affective realism mechanism. Your subconscious cannot tell the difference between an intense real-world experience and an intensely imagined one. Both trigger the exact same neural firing sequence. By physically feeling the relief of an anxiety-free life while suspended in the hypnagogic state, you force the brain to consolidate a new reality. The sleep spindles grab this synthetic emotional data and file it under core truths. You're tricking the survival mechanism into predicting peace instead of panic. But implicit memory is fiercely stubborn. How do you delete the old traumatic files so they don't overwrite your new data by morning? You exploit a neurological glitch known as memory reconsolidation. Every time you recall an old memory, you aren't pulling up a permanent read-only file, you're actively reconstructing it from scratch. For a brief window of about 5 hours, that memory becomes completely unstable. It becomes fluid. If you introduce a contradictory, highly emotional somatic marker, while that old memory is active, the brain physically destroys the old neural pathway. The protein synthesis required to lock the fear back into your synapses is chemically blocked. You don't just get over the anxiety, you biologically erase its blueprint. This isn't therapy, it's localized brain surgery without a scalpel. This mechanism changes everything. It means your past is not a life sentence. It is nothing more than a neurochemical habit waiting for a pattern interrupt. You have the tools. You have the vagal nerve access. You have the hypnagogic theta window. You have the somatic markers. You're finally standing at the control panel of the 11 million bit processor. The narrator has left the room. It's just you and the silent titan now. Tonight, we aren't just drifting off to sleep. We're initiating a hostile takeover of your nervous system. The process requires absolute precision. You cannot force the titan into submission. You must guide it. The descent into the mainframe demands a total surrender of your conscious will. You have to let the illusion of the self dissolve into the mattress. As we move into the final phase, we're going to walk step by step through the exact sleep spindle reprogramming protocol. We will construct these synthetic somatic markers together in real time. We will map the new footpaths of peace until they expand into an 8-lane superhighway. You are about to cross the threshold. The lights in the grand, ancient library are turning off. The 40-bit librarian is asleep, but the true architect of your reality is just waking up. Your brain is perfectly fluid, waiting for the command. The code is yours to write. Are you ready to step into the darkness? Close your eyes. Feel the exact physical weight of your bones pressing against gravity. Right now, your brainstem is flooding your system with a neuroinhibitor called GABA. It is actively severing the connection between your motor cortex and your muscles. You might feel a sudden, involuntary twitch in your legs, or a brief, terrifying sensation of falling. Do not fight it. That twitch is the hypnic jerk. It is the precise biological moment the 40-bit narrator loses its grip on the wheel. The librarian is officially locked out. You're now standing inside the 11 million bit mainframe. The air in your mind is shifting. Your brainwaves are flattening out, slowing from frantic, jagged spikes into smooth, rolling ocean swells. Beta is gone, alpha is fading. You have entered the theta bridge. This is the neuroplastic sweet spot. The critical filter is dead, but the silent titan is wide awake and it is listening. It is waiting for your command. So, what exactly are you going to tell it? We begin the sleep spindle protocol. Do not use words. Words are useless here. The titan cannot process your verbal affirmations. It needs a somatic marker. It demands raw, visceral data. I want you to locate the exact physical address of your anxiety. Where does it live inside you? Is it a tight, suffocating knot in the center of your chest? A shallow and frantic flutter in your throat? A cold, heavy stone in your gut? Focus entirely on that specific physical sensation. You're shining a high-beam spotlight onto the old corrupted code. You're forcing the Titan to pull the traumatic file from the deepest archives of your implicit memory. The file is now open. But if you stay here, you are just practicing your suffering. We have to overwrite the code before the file closes. Shift your attention away from the pain. Focus entirely on the rhythm of your diaphragm. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold the breath for 2. Exhale smoothly, deeply, for 6 seconds. You are forcing the vagus nerve to fire. Your heart rate variability is spiking violently. The amygdala is being starved of oxygen. The biological fear response is chemically suffocating. This is your window of instability. The memory reconsolidation glitch is now active. The old fear file is completely fluid. The proteins binding those traumatic memories together are ungluing. Now we inject the synthetic marker. I want you to physically manufacture the exact opposite sensation of your anxiety. Recall a moment of absolute unquestionable safety. It doesn't matter what it is. The feeling of a heavy, warm blanket. The total relief of a cancelled deadline. The profound stillness of an empty room. Pull that specific physical sensation into your nervous system. Feel the gravity of it. Feel the warmth expanding through your chest, melting the knot, dissolving the cold stone in your gut. Your brain cannot tell the difference between this intensely imagined safety and physical reality. The Titan is deeply confused. It is holding the old, terrifying fear file, but it is simultaneously receiving massive, undeniable physiological data that screams you are perfectly safe. It has to make a choice. The subconscious always defaults to the present physiological reality. The old neural pathway is collapsing. The protein synthesis that locked that anxiety into your synapses for years is being chemically blocked. You are literally dismantling the architectural blueprint of your fear. Neuron by neuron, it is a localized chemical wipe. But the new code is incredibly fragile. It is sitting in a temporary workspace. It needs to be burned into the hard drive. How do we lock it in? Here comes the sleep spindle. As you drift deeper, your thalamus fires a rapid, explosive burst of electrical activity, a 14 Hz frequency wave that ripples fiercely across your cortex. This is the save button, where it grabs this new sensation of safety, this freshly minted synthetic body memory, and drags it down into your long-term implicit memory. It is paving over the old fear. You aren't just going to sleep tonight. You're biologically mutating. Tomorrow morning, you won't just feel slightly different. You will operate from a completely different predictive model. The 8-lane highway of panic is suddenly filled with potholes. The overgrown footpath of profound peace is suddenly paved with fresh asphalt. You're shattering the hall of mirrors. You're changing the lens through which the Titan views the world. But this is only night 1. The Titan is relentless, and it values survival above all else. It will try to rebuild the fear infrastructure tomorrow. So how do we make this permanent? Long-term potentiation demands ruthless repetition. You have to execute this protocol every single night. You have to guard the hypnagogic gates with your life. The last 5 minutes of your day dictate the next 24 hours of your neurochemistry. If you fall asleep scrolling through terrifying news or replaying an argument with your boss, you're voluntarily feeding poison into the 11 million bit machine. You're explicitly instructing the sleep spindles to build thicker walls for your mental prison. Stop giving the Titan junk data. You are the programmer now, and the program requires absolute, unyielding discipline. Sink deeper into the mattress. Surrender the weight of your body. Let the vagus nerve take complete control of your biology. Your breathing is shallow, rhythmic, entirely automatic. The massive 11 million bit processor is humming in the dark. It is actively scanning your new code. It is accepting the upload. The somatic marker of infinite stillness is locking into your synapses. You're rewriting the history of your trauma. You're pre-programming the emotional baseline of your future. The passenger seat is finally empty. The 40-bit narrator is entirely silent. You are becoming the machine. The descent is complete. The mainframe is yours. But what happens when the sun comes up? What happens when the alarm rings, the cortisol spikes, and the waking world immediately tries to trigger the old trauma? The deep code has been rewritten, but it is raw, exposed, and highly vulnerable to the chaos of the morning. We must armor the new neural pathways against the sympathetic overdrive of the daylight hours. We need to construct the waking bridge. The morning is a neurological war zone. The moment your eyes open, a biological sequence called the cortisol awakening response is triggered. Within 30 minutes, your bloodstream is flooded with a massive spike of stress hormones. This isn't anxiety. This is your body's evolutionary alarm clock trying to boot up the system. But here is the danger. Your brain is transitioning out of the fluid theta state. The critical filter is rebooting. The 40-bit narrator is picking up the microphone again. This is the most critical window of your entire day. During the first 10 minutes of wakefulness, your newly synthesized neural pathways are exactly like wet cement. What you do right now dictates whether the code sets permanently or shatters instantly. 90% of people reach for their phone. The moment you look at an email, a news headline, or a text message, you're voluntarily outsourcing your nervous system to the external world. You're actively commanding the 11 million bit processor to overwrite the piece you built last night with the chaos of the morning. You just detonated a neurological bomb in your own brain to construct the waking bridge. You have to starve the narrator. You must protect the wet cement. For the first 10 minutes of the day, you do not consume data. You generate it. You extend the somatic marker. As the morning cortisol spikes, you consciously pair it with the physical sensation of stillness you anchored the night before. You control the breathing. Inhale for 4, exhale for 6. This is called neuro-emotional synchronization. You're teaching the Titan that a biological cortisol spike does not equal danger. It just means you are awake. But surviving the morning isn't enough, because by 2 p.m., the default mode network will launch a massive counterattack. The DMN operates on a strict cyclical rhythm. When your physical energy dips in the afternoon, your frontal lobe fatigues. The conscious librarian takes a coffee break. And the moment the librarian steps out, the DMN powers up. It immediately looks for a threat. It drags you back into the mental time travel loop. It reminds you of the email you didn't send, the conversation you fumbled, the money you don't have. Suddenly, your heart rate elevates, your chest tightens. The old fear file is trying to pry itself back open. How do you stop a 40-bit narrator from unraveling an 11 million bit code in the middle of a busy workday? You don't argue with it. You collapse the network. The DMN cannot exist in the present moment. It is strictly a time-traveling machine. It can only survive in the past or the hypothetical future. To shut it off, you must force your brain to process extreme immediate sensory data. It's called peripheral vision activation. When you are stressed, your visual field naturally narrows, your pupils dilate. You lock onto a focal point, your screen, your hands, the steering wheel. This is the biological signature of a predator scanning for immediate threats. The Titan reads this narrow focus as absolute danger. To hack the system, you reverse engineer the biology. Relax your eyes, soften your gaze, consciously expand your awareness to the extreme edges of your peripheral vision. Notice the walls, the ceiling, the space around you, without moving your pupils. Why does this simple eye movement paralyze the DMN? Because panoramic vision is hardwired directly to your parasympathetic nervous system. It is the visual posture of absolute safety. You cannot physically maintain panoramic vision and high beta panic at the exact same time. The visual cortex overrides the amygdala. Within 60 seconds, the DMN loses its electrical charge. The rumination halts. You just executed a midday system reboot without even closing your eyes. But we are still playing defense. We are just putting out fires. To truly master the mainframe, to become the undeniable architect of your reality, you must transition from defense to offense. You have to trigger neurogenesis. Most people believe that neuroplasticity slows down and stops in your 20s, that the brain you have is the brain you're stuck with. This is a scientific myth. The adult brain can literally grow new neurons in the hippocampus until the day you die, but it won't do it for free. The Titan demands a biological bribe. It demands novelty. Your brain is a high-speed prediction engine. It runs on efficiency. When you drive the same route, eat the same food, and think the exact same thoughts every single day, your brain runs on autopilot. Zero energy is spent. Zero new neurons are born. To force the creation of new hardware, you must introduce prediction errors. You have to intentionally do things that the 11 million bit processor did not anticipate. Brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Take a freezing cold shower for 30 seconds. Walk backward across your living room. These sound trivial to your conscious mind, but to the subconscious Titan, they are massive red alerts. The prediction engine fails. The brain realizes the old map no longer matches the new territory. To survive, it forces the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It starts laying fresh neurological track immediately, but here is the ultimate secret. Novelty builds the new neurons, but your emotions dictate where they go. When you introduce a physical pattern interrupt, like a shock of cold water, and immediately flood your system with the somatic marker of intense gratitude or peace, you're essentially welding those fresh neurons to a positive emotional state. You are building an automatic reflex for joy. Over time, your brain completely stops predicting stress. It starts predicting peace as a baseline survival requirement. You stop reacting to the world around you, and you start dictating it. The war against yourself is officially over. You're no longer the victim of your biology. You are the engineer. You understand the extreme vulnerability of the theta bridge. You know exactly how to manipulate the sleep spindles to rewrite implicit memory. You have the waking bridge to protect your morning cement. You have panoramic vision to execute a midday override. And you are using prediction errors to force the biological evolution of your own hardware. But knowing the internal mechanics is only half the equation. The newly written code is only as powerful as the external environment it runs in. To permanently sustain this biological upgrade, we must address the invisible frequencies surrounding your body every single day. We must look at the hidden environmental triggers that are secretly communicating with the Titan right under your nose. Look around the room you're sitting in right now. Your conscious mind sees furniture, walls, and a screen. It views this space as neutral territory. But your physical environment is not neutral. It is an external hard drive for your default mode network. Every single object in your immediate vicinity carries an invisible emotional weight. This is the psychological phenomenon known as spatial anchoring. The 40-bit librarian only sees a pile of unopened mail or a cluttered desk. But the 11 million bit Titan doesn't see paper. It sees a threat. It processes every unfinished task in your room as an open biological loop. This triggers the Zeigarnik effect, a neurological glitch where the brain obsessively burns metabolic fuel to keep incomplete tasks active in your working memory. This is why you feel exhausted while doing absolutely nothing. You think you're resting on your couch, but beneath the surface your subconscious is violently juggling 100 microstressors. You cannot out-meditate a toxic physical environment. Your brain is a prediction engine, and your messy room is feeding it a constant data stream of chaos. But spatial clutter is just the physical layer of the trap. There is a silent, invisible assassin in your room right now, actively hijacking your nervous system before you even blink. It's the frequency of your light. You're surrounded by artificial lighting, LED screens, and fluorescent bulbs. To your conscious eye, the light is steady, but it isn't. These light sources operate on a microflicker rate. They strobe at a frequency too fast for the 40-bit narrator to perceive, but the 11 million bit processor catches every single pulse. Your eyes contain specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. They don't help you see shapes or colors. They communicate directly with your hypothalamus and your amygdala. When the Titan detects the rapid, unnatural flicker of an LED screen, it doesn't process it as light. It processes it as a predatory strobe. It reads the erratic frequency as an environmental anomaly. The alarm sounds. Cortisol drips into your bloodstream. You aren't inexplicably anxious. Your retinas are literally sending a predator approaching signal to your brainstem 60 times a second. You're trying to rewrite your internal code while sitting inside a biological microwave. But light is only half the invisible war. The real manipulation of your subconscious is happening through a channel you can't even see. It is happening through infrasound. Modern life is built on a foundation of low frequency, continuous mechanical hums, the HVAC system, the refrigerator, the distant roar of highway traffic. Your conscious mind tunes this out within seconds through a process called sensory adaptation. The librarian puts on noise-cancelling headphones and thinks the problem is solved, but the Titan is still listening. The mammalian brain evolved over millions of years to associate low-frequency, continuous vibration with catastrophic danger. A low rumble in nature means an earthquake, an avalanche, or a massive approaching predator. Your conscious mind knows you are safe in your apartment. But your amygdala stays awake, trapped in a low-grade panic, waiting for the ceiling to collapse. You are fighting a chemical war against your own appliances. So how do you hack an environment that is biologically designed to keep you terrified? You stop trying to ignore it. You build a neurosensory Faraday cage. You must establish a zero-state zone in your physical world, a specific, dedicated physical anchor where the DMN is starved of all predictive triggers. It doesn't need to be a whole room, it just needs to be a corner, but the rules are absolute. No digital input, no problem solving, no work. You are building an external save point for your new neural code, but to activate it, you must bypass the brain's analytical filters entirely. You do this through the olfactory bulb. Smell is the only one of your 5 senses that does not pass through the thalamus, the brain's sensory relay station. It has a direct, unfiltered superhighway straight into the amygdala and the hippocampus. When you pair a specific, unique scent with your sleep spindle reprogramming protocol, you create a chemical skeleton key. You anchor the feeling of infinite stillness to that specific odor. The next time the DMN launches a midday attack, you don't need to lie down and meditate. You simply introduce the scent. The olfactory bulb forcefully bypasses the 40-bit narrator. It violently injects the somatic marker of peace directly into the fear center. The panic collapses instantly. You just biohacked your way out of an anxiety attack in 3 seconds. But even if you build the perfect sanctuary and master your sensory inputs, there is one final lethal biological trap. And you're probably falling into it right now as you listen to this. Pay attention to your posture. Notice your jaw. Notice your shoulders. More importantly, notice the exact angle of your hips. The bridge between your physical environment and your subconscious mind is a deep core muscle called the psoas. It connects your lower spine to your upper thigh. In the world of trauma neuroscience, the psoas is known as the muscle of the soul. It is the central engine of your fight or flight response. When a mammal is threatened, the very first biological reflex is to contract the psoas muscle, pulling the knees to the chest to protect the vital organs. It is the fetal position. Every time you sit hunched over a keyboard, every time you scroll on your phone with your neck thrust forward, you are chronically contracting the psoas. The Titan monitors your muscle tension 24/7. When it detects a chronically tight psoas, it sends a high-priority message to the brainstem. We are curled into a defensive posture. We are currently under attack. Your conscious mind is trying to write an email, but your body is preparing to be eaten alive. Whereas you cannot think your way out of a physiological threat response. Until you physically release the muscle, the fear loop will never close. Fix the environment. Control the light. Release the physical tension. This is how you transition from being a victim of the machine to the engineer of it. But what is the ultimate goal? What happens when the invisible frequencies are neutralized and the Titan is finally tamed. You enter the state of autonomic coherence. This is the peak of neuroplastic mastery. It is the exact moment when your heart rate variability, your respiratory rhythm, and your brainwave frequencies lock into a single, unified mathematical phase. The friction between the conscious librarian and the subconscious giant vanishes. You stop predicting stress. Your biological baseline physically permanently shifts from survival to expansion. But crossing this final threshold requires a brutal sacrifice. To step into the silence, you have to kill the one thing you love most. You have to sacrifice your victim identity. The default mode network loves your trauma story. It clings to your past pain because it is familiar, and to the primitive brain, familiar equals safe. Your ego uses your anxiety as a shield. It gives you an excuse to stay small. To reach infinite stillness, you must let the old version of you die. The 40-bit narrator has to be permanently demoted. You have to mourn the illusion of who you thought you were. The silence isn't just peaceful, it is deafeningly honest. When the noise stops, there is nowhere left to hide. You're finally standing face to face with the limitless power of your own existence. The software is deleted, the new code is compiled, the biological prison doors are blown wide open. The only question left is, what are you going to do with your freedom? The final reconciliation between the 40-bit librarian and the 11 million-bit giant doesn't happen through combat. It happens through resonance. We have spent this journey deconstructing the machinery of your suffering, peeling back the layers of the default mode network, and exposing the biological fortress that keeps you trapped in the past. We have established that your willpower is a candle in a hurricane, and that your self is a retrospective narrator, a ghost in the machine telling stories about decisions that were already made in the dark. But here, in the deepening silence of your descent, we reach the ultimate resolution. The backdoor we searched for isn't just a window of time before sleep. It is the realization that the narrator and the giant were never meant to be enemies. For years, you've been fighting a war against your own survival mechanism. You viewed your anxiety, your rumination, and your limiting beliefs as glitches to be deleted. But the Titan, that 11 million-bit processor, is not your enemy. It is a hyper-efficient devotion machine. Its only fault is that it is too good at its job. It took every scrap of pain, every social rejection, and every fearful thought you ever entertained and treated it as a sacred command. It built a prison of rumination not to punish you, but to protect you. It paved those 8-lane highways of anxiety because your 40-bit conscious mind told it, through focus and repetition, that those were the most important paths in the world. The prison is actually a testament to your own power to create. You have been a master programmer. Yeah, you simply didn't like the code you were writing. The resolution of this conflict is what neuroscience calls the integrated state. This is where the 40-bit librarian stops trying to shout over the 11 million-bit roar and instead learns to conduct the orchestra. Remember the Libet experiments, the revelation that your conscious free will is actually a free won't. This is the core answer you have been seeking. You do not have to create your thoughts, you just have to decide which ones are allowed to stay. You're not the architect of the impulse, but you're the absolute master of the veto. When the Titan offers up an 11 million-bit simulation of failure, the librarian doesn't have to fight it. You simply withhold your attention. You apply the veto. In that tiny fraction of a second, you interrupt the long-term potentiation. You stop the neurons that fire together from wiring together. This is the ultimate exercise of human sovereignty, the power to witness the machine without becoming the machine. As you drift now, suspended in the fluid architecture of the theta bridge, the expectation gap is finally closing. The war you were guaranteed to lose is over because the soldier has laid down his arms. We have hacked the default mode network, not by destroying it, but by giving it a new directive. By using the sleep spindle protocol and the somatic markers of safety, you have provided the Titan with a new blueprint. You have moved from a state of survival to a state of sovereignty. This is the neuroscience of the soul in its purest form, the moment where biological necessity meets conscious intention. Even if the infinite stillness promised at the beginning of this journey isn't the absence of thought, it is the presence of an unshakable observer. You're no longer the passenger being driven by a stranger. You're the space in which the driving happens. The 11 million bits are no longer a threat. They are your untapped potential. Every heartbeat, every cellular repair, and every synaptic connection is now running on a code of coherence rather than a code of conflict. You have synchronized the biological clock with the psychological clock. The psoas is released, the vagus nerve is singing, and the sleep spindles are currently welding the final pieces of your new identity into the mainframe. This is the point of neuroplastic fluidity where the self is no longer a fixed, rigid cage of past trauma. It is a dynamic, flowing landscape. The prison of rumination has been dismantled, its bricks used to build a foundation of deep, implicit peace. You're experiencing the state-dependent learning of your own divinity. You aren't just learning how to relax, you're learning how to be the consciousness that manages the Titan. You're stepping into the natural state, the version of you that existed before the world told you who to be, before the DMN began its frantic time traveling, and before the 40-bit narrator became obsessed with survival. The true satisfaction of this journey comes from the realization that you never needed to fix yourself. There was never anything broken. There was only a lack of synchronization. The giant was just waiting for a better set of instructions, and tonight you have delivered them. The high-speed simulation of your life is no longer a horror movie. It is a masterpiece of your own design. The back door is now a front door, and it is standing wide open. You're moving past the implicit memory of pain and into the explicit creation of peace. As the last remnants of the external world fade away, feel the profound exhilaration of this biological rebirth. You have hijacked the most complex machine in the known universe. You have navigated the ancient library, calmed the Titan, and rewritten the code of your existence. The 8-lane highways of the past are being reclaimed by the jungle of your original nature. The footpaths of stillness are expanding into infinite horizons. There is no more fighting. There is no more trying. There is only the deep and resonant now of the 11 million bit processor running on a program of total unyielding safety. The state of infinite stillness is your new default. The stranger in the driver's seat is no longer a stranger. It is your own biology, finally in harmony with your intent. The silence is no longer waiting. The silence is you. You have descended to the very core of the mainframe and found that the architect was always there, waiting for the narrator to stop talking. The code is locked. The spindles are firing. The transformation is biological, it is permanent, and it is complete. You are the stillness. You are the Titan. You are the silence behind the story. The weight of your existence is no longer a burden. It is a profound, effortless flow. The energy once wasted on hypervigilance and defense is now being redirected toward neurogenesis, healing, and the expansion of your own awareness. You're not just sleeping, you're evolving. You're not just resting, you're rising. The biological fortress has become a sanctuary. The 11 million bits are now working in total silent service to the peace you have cultivated. The narrator is asleep, but the truth is wide awake. You have reclaimed the machine, you have mastered the descent, the threshold is crossed, and you are finally home. In the vast, echoing library of your mind, the lights are not just off, they have been replaced by the dawn of a new consciousness. Every breath you take is now a signature of your own freedom. The code is written, the Titan is at peace, the journey is done. The reconciliation of this biological divide is not found in a struggle for dominance, but in the profound surrender of the narrator to the architect. We began this journey by confronting a terrifying reality, that you are a 40-bit per second passenger trapped in a vehicle driven by an 11 million bit stranger. We deconstructed the prison of the default mode network and exposed the chemical highways of your trauma. But as you stand now in the epicenter of the Theta Bridge, The ultimate truth reveals itself, and it is more liberating than anything the conscious mind could have ever calculated. The stranger was never an enemy. The 11 million bit Titan was never trying to keep you small. It was simply waiting for a master who spoke its language. The war you were guaranteed to lose was the war of a tiny candle trying to fight the sun. You don't fight the sun to find the light, you simply open the window. By mastering the sleep spindle protocol and anchoring the somatic markers of peace, you have stopped fighting the machine and started directing its immense processing power toward the creation of a new, coherent reality. The 275,000-to-1 ratio is no longer a measure of your helplessness. It is the measure of your limitless potential. Imagine that staggering bandwidth, the same power that manages every cellular division, every heartbeat, and every complex neural firing, now fully dedicated to the vibration of stillness. You're no longer using 40 bits to try and think your way into peace. You have leveraged the entire 11 million bit mainframe to be peace. The conflict between the narrator and the giant has dissolved because the narrator has finally realized its true role. You're not the person telling the story. You are the consciousness that allows the story to exist. All the open loops of your life, the ruminations on the past, the anxieties about the future, the feeling of being an observer in your own body, have been closed by this single biological realization. The back door to the neuroscience of the soul is now the front door of your daily existence. You have bypassed the critical filter and rewritten the code at the level of implicit memory. The sleep spindles have fired their final save command, and the protein synthesis is complete. Your past is no longer a prophecy. It is merely a data set that has been archived. This is the state of autonomic coherence. Every breath you take is now a signal of safety sent directly to the amygdala. Every thought that arises is now filtered through the lens of panoramic vision. The self that was once a rigid cage of survival habits has evaporated, leaving behind a fluid, neuroplastic landscape of infinite possibility. You have reclaimed the free won't, the power to veto the old programs before they ever reach the surface of your awareness. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're projecting a new world from the depths of a tame subconscious. Feel the profound weight of this liberation. The biological fortress is no longer a prison, it is a sanctuary. The silent titan is no longer a stranger, it is your most loyal servant. The 40-bit librarian and the 11 million bit architect are finally speaking the same language, vibrating at the same frequency, moving in the same direction. The friction of the human condition has been replaced by the effortless flow of your natural state. You are the stillness, you are the silence, you are the architect who has finally returned to the control room. The machinery is running, the code is stable, and the horizon is wide open. The war is over, the descent is finished, the integration is complete. You are home. In this final, absolute alignment of mind and biology, you aren't just surviving the night, you're authoring the dawn. Every neuron is firing in a symphony of coherence. Every cell is anchored in the somatic truth of your own power. The titan is resting, the narrator is still, and you, the awareness behind it all, are finally free to simply be. The 11 million bits are now yours to command. The stillness is no longer a destination. It is the ground you walk on. The code has been rewritten. The mainframe is secure, and the masterpiece of your new life is already beginning to unfold in the deep, wordless dark. You have moved from the passenger seat to the source of the movement itself. The illusion of the separate self has vanished, leaving only the vast, radiant intelligence of a brain in total harmony. The transition from survival to infinite stillness is not a dream. It is your new biological reality. You are the programmer, the code, and the observer all at once, perfectly synchronized in the timeless now. As the sleep spindles complete their final cycles of consolidation, your brain is physically hardening the pathways of this new peace. The highways of anxiety are being reclaimed by the silence. The footpaths of joy are widening into grand avenues of light. Every physiological system in your body is now tuned to the frequency of sovereignty. You have hacked the neuroscience of your soul and found that the only thing waiting for you at the center was the version of you that was never afraid. The journey into the mainframe has revealed the ultimate secret of the human mind, that when you stop trying to control the machine, you finally become its master. The transformation is deep, chemical, and permanent. The 40 bits of your conscious intent have successfully seeded the 11 million bits of your subconscious power. The harvest is a life lived in total alignment. No more fighting, no more resisting. Just the smooth, rolling waves of a nervous system that knows exactly who it is and exactly what it is capable of. The architect is awake, the code is set, and the silence is eternal. You are the living proof that the mind can transcend its own architecture. You are the living resonance of inner peace. The mainframe is silent, the Titan is at rest, and you are everything. The ultimate lesson of this entire journey is the realization that you are not a victim of your biology, but its greatest architect. We began in the dark, feeling like passengers in a vehicle driven by a stranger, but we end here, at the control panel of the most complex system in the universe. The staggering divide between your 40-bit conscious mind and the 11 million-bit Titan is no longer a source of fear. It is your greatest leverage. You have learned that the default mode network, the very engine that once powered your greatest suffering, can be repurposed to sustain your deepest peace. This is the profound synthesis of the neuroscience of the soul, that when you stop trying to force the machine and start learning to speak its language, the conflict of existence dissolves into a symphony of coherence. You're not the narrator who is trapped in the past. You are the awareness that has the power to veto the old code and write a new future into the very proteins of your synapses. This isn't just about relaxation. It is about the total reclamation of your human sovereignty. As the sleep spindles lock in these new neural pathways, understand that you have crossed a biological threshold from which there is no turning back. You have discovered the state-dependent truth that inner peace is not a luxury, but a fundamental biological frequency that you can access at will. The prison of rumination has been dismantled, leaving behind a vast open landscape of potential. You are the miracle grow of your own neurogenesis. You are the conductor of your own vagal rhythm. You are the silence that remains when the noise of the world finally loses its grip. Stand in the majesty of this realization. You are the living proof that consciousness can override chemistry. You are the pilot who has finally mastered the descent. The stranger is gone, the narrator is quiet, and the 11 million-bit Titan is finally at rest in the hands of its true master. You are the stillness. You are the light. You are the architect of the infinite. The war against the self is over, and in its place, a new kingdom of coherence has been born. The code is written, the mainframe is secure, and you are finally home. As this new code settles into the fluid architecture of your synapses, recognize that tonight is merely the first line of an entirely new operating system. The 11 million-bit Titan is now calibrated to your intent, but the world outside remains a high-frequency broadcast designed to overwrite your peace the moment you wake. To maintain this biological sovereignty, your internal library requires a consistent, unyielding signal, a recurring data stream that reinforces the architect and silences the narrator. By aligning yourself with this collective of conversion engineers, you are doing more than following a channel. You're securing the perimeter of your zero-state zone. Each subsequent protocol we release serves as a vital neurological save point, a necessary recalibration to ensure that the stillness you found tonight doesn't just fade, but becomes the permanent baseline of your existence. In a world optimized to hijack your default mode network, staying synchronized with these frequency shifts is the only way to ensure the stranger never takes the wheel again. If you're ready to move from a temporary shift to a lifelong biological evolution, secure your place in the mainframe now. Commit to the frequency that protects your code. However, the work of total integration has one final critical vulnerability. While we have mastered the descent into the deep mainframe of sleep, the true test of your new neural highways occurs at the threshold of the dawn. If you do not know how to shield your wet cement from the violent cortisol spike of the morning, the external environment will reclaim your machine before you've even opened your eyes. To finalize the bridge between your subconscious power and your waking reality, you must master the cortisol shield protocol. I have placed that specific directive on the screen for you now. It is the essential next step to ensure the stillness we built tonight survives the chaos of tomorrow. Click there to complete the circuit and finalize the takeover of your nervous system. The code is active. The evolution is yours to command.